What exactly caused a war between Mexico and the United States? Before we address the Mexican-American War, let's take a brief look at the history of the Texas Revolution, a conflict that occurred a decade earlier. In the early 1800s, Texas was a part of Mexico. The country had won its independence from Spain in 1821, and in an attempt to promote settlement, Mexico provided land to American immigrants. So Americans began to migrate to Texas in large numbers, in search for a better life. As a result, by the 1830s, American settlers had outnumbered Mexican Tejanos in the area. However, the abolition of slavery in Mexico in 1829 infuriated many American settlers, whose cotton plantations relied on slave labor. In addition to other political and cultural differences, this decision increased hostilities between the American settlers and the Mexican government. In 1833, Antonio López de Santa Anna was elected president of Mexico. He started implementing centralist policies, something that made Texans feel dissatisfied. These new policies undermined the autonomy previously granted to Texas under the Federalist Mexican Constitution of 1824. So the rebels sought to establish an independent republic separate from Mexico. After dissolving Congress and declaring himself a dictator, Santa Anna directed Mexican soldiers to begin disarming Texans. On October 2, 1835, Mexican troops attempted to seize a small cannon from the town of Gonzales. However, Texan revolutionaries successfully withstood Mexican attempts to retrieve the cannon, with the famous "Come and Take It" flag representing their resistance. Many people think of the Battle of Gonzales as the first battle of the Texas Revolution. Another iconic event of the Revolution was the Siege of the Alamo. It lasted from February 23 to March 6, 1836. The Alamo, a former mission in San Antonio, came to symbolize Texan defiance and resistance. Famous figures like Jim Bowie and Davy Crockett joined a small Texan garrison that took refuge in the Alamo when Mexican forces led by Santa Anna attacked. 200 Texan defenders heroically withstood the Mexican attack for 13 days, although being greatly outnumbered. Eventually, Santa Anna's army defeated the Alamo's defenses on March 6, 1836, killing almost all of the Texans. Even though the Mexicans won the Battle of the Alamo, the sacrifice of the defenders inspired Texans, who were even more driven to gain their independence. A few days later, after defeating Texan soldiers in the Battle of Coleto, Mexican troops led by General Santa Anna executed about 400 Texan prisoners at Goliad. Following the fall of the Alamo and the defeat at Goliad, Texans were now more determined than ever. During the Battle of San Jacinto on April 21, 1836, Texan forces led by General Sam Houston rallied and defeated the Mexican troops. During the attack, Texan troops chanted the legendary battle cry, "Remember the Alamo, remember Goliad." The Battle of San Jacinto ended in the capture of Santa Anna, securing Texas's independence. As a prisoner, Santa Anna signed the Treaties of Velasco. The public treaty provided for the withdrawal of Mexican troops from Texas, while a secret agreement aimed to secure Mexican recognition of Texas independence. After being released from captivity, Santa Anna returned to Mexico, where he faced criticism, leading to his exile in 1839. However, in 1842, he managed to seize power once again, briefly becoming president for the 7th time. Soon after the Battle of San Jacinto, the Republic of Texas was formed, and Sam Houston became its first president. But the Mexican government refused to acknowledge Texan independence and viewed Texas as a rebellious province. So, the annexation of Texas by the United States in 1845 quickly escalated tensions between the two countries. When Texas became the 28th state of the United States, Mexico saw it as a violation of its territorial integrity, strongly opposing this decision. Territorial issues further intensified the problem. The United States claimed the Rio Grande as the border, while Mexico claimed it was the Nueces River farther north. Battles along the border erupted, as both sides accused the other of intrusion. In January 1846, American President James K. Polk ordered General Zachary Taylor to move U.S. troops to the disputed territory. As Taylor's troops began their march southward, this move was seen as a direct provocation by Mexico, since it placed American forces in a territory that Mexico also claimed. In late March, Taylor's troops reached the banks of the Rio Grande, opposite the Mexican city of Matamoros. There, they built Fort Texas, right across from the Mexican fortifications. Mexico viewed this as an invasion, with tensions escalating quickly as both sides fortified their positions. On April 25, 1846, the situation reached a critical point. A small patrol of U.S. soldiers was dispatched from Fort Texas and encountered a much larger Mexican force. The Mexican soldiers opened fire on the American troops, killing or capturing many of the Americans. They then besieged Fort Texas. Taylor called in reinforcements and started getting ready for battle. The Battle of Palo Alto took place on May 8, 1846, near Brownsville in Texas. American troops were led by General Zachary Taylor, while Mexican soldiers were under General Mariano Arista's command. Despite being outnumbered, Taylor's forces prevailed. The next day, at the Battle of Resaca de la Palma, American troops defeated Arista's forces again, forcing them to retreat across the Rio Grande. President Polk was a strong supporter of Manifest Destiny, a belief that Americans were divinely destined to settle the entire North American continent. So following those battles, Polk used the incident at the border to justify declaring war on Mexico. The Congress supported this act, and on May 13, 1846, the United States officially declared war on Mexico. About a month later, on June 14th, the Bear Flag Revolt began in California, which at the time was under Mexican control. American settlers revolted, declaring California an independent republic. They raised a flag featuring an image of a grizzly bear and a star, which became known as the Bear Flag. The revolt was short-lived as U.S. forces soon took control, raising the American flag and claiming California for the United States. In September 1846, General Taylor led an assault on the city of Monterrey in northeastern Mexico. After intense combat, Mexican forces surrendered the city. Taylor secured Monterrey, but he allowed the Mexican army to retreat, a decision that received criticism from Washington. Another important battle took place in the area of Buena Vista, in Mexico, on February 22 and 23, 1847. A bigger Mexican army under General Antonio López de Santa Anna was up against General Taylor's American soldiers. Even though the Americans were outnumbered, General Taylor's tactics resulted in a hard-fought victory. After the defeat at Buena Vista, Santa Anna was forced into exile once again. A notable event during the war was the siege of Veracruz, which took place between March 9 and March 29, 1847. Veracruz, a strategically significant port city, was effectively besieged by American forces led by General Winfield Scott. Following a prolonged siege, Mexican soldiers surrendered, allowing American occupation of the city. After Veracruz, American forces continued to march towards Mexico City, winning battles in various cities along the way. On September 13, 1847, American troops finally reached the heavily fortified Chapultepec Castle. The Battle of Chapultepec resulted in a major American victory that opened the way for the capture of Mexico's capital. The fall of Mexico City ended all major operations and brought an end to the war. On February 2, 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed, officially ending the conflict. The Rio Grande was established as the southern boundary of Texas, resolving the border dispute. Mexico ceded a vast territory to the United States, including present-day California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico, as well as parts of Colorado, Wyoming, Kansas, and Oklahoma. In exchange, the United States paid Mexico $15 million. The U.S. also assumed $3.25 million in debts owed by Mexico to American citizens. In addition, the treaty specified that Mexican citizens who chose to stay in the surrendered territory would have their property and civil rights protected. The signing of the treaty officially ended hostilities between the United States and Mexico. It solidified U.S. territorial expansion to the Pacific Ocean and marked the beginning of the modern border between the two nations. However, tensions between the two countries persisted, primarily over how Mexican residents were treated in newly acquired territory, ongoing border disputes, resentment over lost territory, and concerns about U.S. expansionism in the region. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to discover more thrilling stories from the past.